Hi everyone, I'm Cindy Royal and I'm a professor at Texas State University and the director of the Media Innovation Lab. And I'm excited to be a part of this big online course of the UT Knight Center on Product Thinking. Over the next several weeks, I will be interviewing product leaders, and my first guest is Andrew Losowsky, who's the head of the Coral Project. Andrew and I were Knight Fellows together at Stanford University a few years ago, so I personally am very interested in hearing about what he's been up to. So thank you for joining me today, Andrew.
Thank you, Cindy. It's a great pleasure for me.
So let's talk a little bit about your background and career progression up to this point.
Sure. So I started in journalism in the late 90s. When I was in college, I did the college newspaper and so on and helped them get on the web at a time when the web was just really getting started. And I worked in a combination of magazine journalism, digital journalism. I did some reporting for print newspapers in a couple of different countries. And really for me, I discovered that what I was getting a real passion for was helping people engage more with the journalism and the journalists themselves. As the web grew and thrived and social media came along, we started to see that there were real opportunities for people to be heard and share their voices and build audiences around that. And that it felt like initially, at least, journalism didn't really know how to manage this or what to do about it. And this question of are journalists gatekeepers? Are they curators? Are they conveners of conversation? Should they be just broadcasting at people and let people respond themselves in other spaces? And a lot of these questions came up for debate, and there was a lot of challenges as well to the question of what does it mean for the authority of a journalist to be in an online space where people are engaging and interacting in different ways, as well as, of course, which voices were missing from the conversation. And so this very much became my passion and my focus. And following on from the Knight Fellowship at Stanford, I became much more enmeshed in product thinking and user-centered design thinking as well. And then I was hired to be the first person really on the Coral Project, which started 4 years ago now. And my job really was to take what was an initial grant and a collaboration between the New York Times and the Washington Post and Mozilla, the people behind Firefox, into what did that actually look like to devise and then deliver products to try to help journalists and communities engage better. And so that's really been the focus of my work for the last 4 years.
So tell us a little bit more about the Coral Project. What is it specifically, and what's its current state?
Sure. So the Coral Project's mission has been the same throughout, although we've gone down a number of different paths to try to understand how to reach and achieve that mission. And the mission is really bring journalists and the communities they serve closer together. And to do that because that's a way of making journalism more sustainable, a way of improving civic society, a way of improving democracy, and a way of improving the internet, especially in the context of online communities and comments which have become so toxic and filled with abuse. So that's really always been the direction. Initially, as I mentioned, it was founded as a collaboration between these big entities as part of the nonprofit arm of Mozilla with grant funding, first from the Knight Foundation and then from other funders. And now we're a part of Vox Media. That's people who do Vox.com and The Verge and Ito and Curbed and so on. Vox with a V, as they say here. And so now we're part of their technology and product team, which is about 140 people now. And Vox Media has its own content management system called Chorus, which it sells as a software as a service to other newsrooms, as well as powering all of Vox Media's own properties. And we're sort of the community tools part of that, as well as a standalone community tool. And so what we do for newsrooms now is really two different things. One is software and one isn't. It starts really with the strategy first before we get to the software, because really that's the question of whether or not the engagement is going to be successful. So we help newsrooms with training, with resources, guides. We put a lot of it online and for free, and a lot of it open source. A lot of our work is in the open, as well as our code. And that's really to help journalists and newsrooms understand what does it mean to engage the audience in your mission? What are the ways that you can do it more successfully? And then how do you actually apply that in a way that allows communities to feel heard, respected, validated, and recognized for their contributions towards the mission? And so we start with the strategy, and then also we have software as well. And so we have our own comments and community platform that can be used for AMAs and Q&As and live chat and comments and community and so on. We call it Talk. And right now it's powering the comments on more than 50 newsrooms in 14 countries.
So it sounds like you have a dual audience. You have journalists who need to embed this technology in what they do and understand more how comments are a part of their activities, but then the actual audience of people making comments, you have to understand that. Can you talk about some of the product techniques you use to better understand these audiences as you started developing the product and how that continues now?
Yeah, absolutely. So we were created in part because while there was existing comments technology, it was clearly going very badly for the communities and also going very badly for the newsrooms who were not getting the data that they needed to help deepen their understanding of the audience and deepen their relationship with their most loyal community members. And so our starting point was, rather than saying, well, how do we just build the same thing that everybody else does and maybe add a feature or two that could be better, was really to step back and say, what is the problem that we're trying to deal with here? And how does that differ from what people think the problem is? So we started with a lot of user interviews. We talked with more than 400 people in 150 newsrooms in 30 countries. And as we went along, we compiled spreadsheets and then Trello boards just filled with what do we hear? What are the patterns of what we're hearing? How much does one thing apply to another? We met up with some of the most loyal commenters and we brought them into the newsrooms for the first time and sat them down with the editors-in-chief and said, what do you want the people in this newsroom to hear? And then also had the editors-in-chief say to the community members, well, what do you think this space is for and what could it be for? And we also talk to people who are harassed out of online communities or will never comment or will never read the comments for understandable reasons and get their perspective of what were they missing, what kind of engagements would they want to have with journalists, as well as doing some much bigger surveys and studies across different parts of the industry. Online community is not a new space. Online journalism is not a new concept. And there has been a huge amount of academic research into understanding and trying different experiments in this space. And yet what we found was that we were one of the first, if not the first, actual technologists and product creators to talk to some of the academics who had been experts on this space for 20 years. And they said they were kind of stunned that anyone was actually trying to apply their work. Whereas I just felt, well, why wouldn't we? These are people who are doing user testing and they're publishing results and they're making sure it's rigorous and they're testing all the data. But what we found time and time again is that technologists are rushed. There is a big pressure to, okay, let's deliver. So the first and easiest thing to do is to copy what someone else is doing, copy Facebook, copy something else, add your one single twist. It's Uber but for dogs, and there you are. And then you just build out and copy whatever Uber does, and then add some dogs on it, and there you are. Whereas actually, we wanted to step back and say, what have we learned about this space as a whole sort of academy and as a space? And so we worked closely with academics. We ended up commissioning a few academic studies to fill some of the gaps in the knowledge that we were looking for. So there was a lot of different work that we did around our research, working with academics, working with technologists, and so on. To do that first so that we could understand better what is this space that we're working in, what are the problems, and the problems, by the way, are not bad comments. The problems are lack of loyalty and belief in journalism. The problems are no sustainable business model that engages your most loyal users. They're much bigger problems than people think they are. And so for us, a lot of our work now, when people come to me and say, oh, the comments are terrible, can we switch to your software and that'll fix everything, right? I'm like, no, but now we're talking. Now let's talk about your real problems, which is your lack of community strategy and lack of resources to think about it. And what are the things that you can do with the resources you have? And then we can see if our software is the right way to apply it. So for us, our product thinking really comes down to listening, understanding, defining the problem, rather than just being told what the problem is or being told what the solution is, and then take it from there.